The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and several appendages twitched nervously. "Order! Order in the chamber!" Supreme Chancellor Jackson's voice reverberated through the neural amplifiers. Their bioluminescent crests pulsed in harmony with their words. "We are gathered here today to discuss the imminent first contact with the Earth species." I fumbled with my data crystals, preparing for my presentation, while the holographic display flickered to life. It revealed surveillance footage of human military parades, primitive, yet captivating nuclear weapons, and their surprisingly intense and aggressive sports competitions. As protocol demanded, I spoke, my voice calm despite the excitement bubbling inside me. "We must demonstrate the full strength of our united civilizations. The humans recognize power, they respect force. Our analysis of their entertainment broadcasts supports this consistently." Chancellor Jackson gave a slow nod of approval, their head tendrils swaying slightly. "Well done. Ambassador Blake, what forces have we mustered?" 10,000 warships from across our member species," I reported with pride. "The largest fleet assembled since the Proxima Rebellion. We've placed the Zorvok dreadnoughts at the forefront, their crystalline hulls stretching over 20 kilometers. The Clethar battle fleet will serve as the honor guard." "And their response?" Representative Mason of the Virexian consciousness interrupted, their sleek robotic form glinting. "Have they acknowledged our strength demonstration protocols?" I clicked my mandibles in amusement. "They sent us a brief message. Just 3 words. Sounds good." The chamber erupted into murmurs of confusion. How could they respond so casually to our sacred protocols? I quickly reassured them, it must be a translation error. We expect their flagship to arrive within 12 rotations. I continued, trying to maintain order. "Our intelligence suggests it will be their most formidable vessel, heavily armed and commanded by their fiercest warriors." Little did I know, my well-thought-out predictions about human behavior were on the verge of being shattered, like a fragile ornament tossed into a gravity well. The humans, as we would soon discover, had a very different idea of what it meant to show strength. "Prepare the ceremonial fleet formations," Chancellor Jackson ordered. "Let us show these humans the true meaning of galactic power." The chamber buzzed with approval, clicks, hums, and pulses of bioluminescent light. We were ready. We had meticulously reviewed every protocol, carefully positioned every ship, and calibrated every ceremonial weapon display. Yet, we were completely unprepared. "Recording entry #547, the sensor officer continued. Our combined fleet was the most impressive display of military might ever assembled in the known galaxy. The Zorvok dreadnoughts arranged their crystalline hulls to reflect the starlight in stunning, intricate patterns. The Clethar battle fleet's energy shields pulsed in perfect synchronization, creating brilliant waves of iridescent light across the void. Even the normally stoic representatives of the Virexian consciousness had polished their cubic ships to a flawless sheen. "Contact!" the sensor officer announced, their tentacles vibrating with excitement. "Human vessel approaching through hyperspace." I straightened my ceremonial robes and activated the grand viewing screen. This was the moment. Their mighty flagship would emerge, weapons ready, prepared to match our imposing display. Then, Chancellor Jackson spoke, their bioluminescence flickering in confusion. "There must be a mistake." "Recalibrate the sensors," Jackson ordered. But the sensors were working perfectly. Through the darkness of space came not a battleship, not a dreadnought, but a single shuttle. It was roughly the size of a Zorvok escape pod, painted in bright white with blue stripes. The vessel was unarmed with no shield generators and, most shockingly, bore a bumper sticker that read, "Honk if you love tentacles." "Perhaps," I suggested with a flicker of hope, "it's a scout for their main fleet." The communication crystal chimed, signaling an incoming transmission. "Incoming transmission," reported our communications officer, their feathers quivering with anticipation. The screen flickered to life, revealing a human male with untamed facial hair and what looked like a food stain on his shirt. He was lounging in his pilot's chair, feet propped up on the console. We later discovered that what he wore were called flip-flops, primitive footwear, shockingly inadequate for interstellar diplomacy. "Hey there!" the human waved nonchalantly. "I'm Ethan Cooper, Earth's diplomatic representative. Sweet fleet you've got here. Mind if I dock? I brought snacks." Chancellor Jackson's translator struggled to process the casual language, requiring 3 attempts. I felt my exoskeleton twinge with embarrassment. Where was the formality? The grand declaration of strength, the exchange of military capabilities, the traditional threats of mutual destruction? "You brought snacks?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking. "Yeah, I got some Doritos, a couple of bags of M&Ms, and my special guacamole. Fair warning, though. The guac might be a bit too spicy for non-human taste buds. Made that mistake at the Proxima Centauri embassy last week. Poor guy hiccuped antimatter for 3 days. The chamber fell into an oppressive silence. 10,000 warships, the combined might of 7 civilizations, facing off against a single human in beach sandals offering spicy vegetable paste. "Ambassador Blake," Chancellor Jackson whispered, their voice tight with disbelief. "Did we make a catastrophic error in our intelligence gathering?" Before I could respond, Ethan's voice crackled through again. "Oh hey, by the way, love what you've done with the fleet formation. Those crystal ships really catch the light. Totally Instagram-worthy. Mind if I take a quick selfie before I dock?" I watched in utter disbelief as the human pulled out a primitive imaging device and began snapping selfies with our fleet in the background. He even posed with his fingers in what he called a peace sign. The representatives of the Varexian consciousness audibly whirred as their logic circuits struggled to process this absurdity. To process this unprecedented breach of protocol, 3 Zorvok commanders fainted, their crystalline bodies gently clinking as they collapsed against their command chairs. In the background, I thought I heard someone mutter, "By the void, they're more advanced than we realized." Little did we know then just how much truth was in that whisper. Recording entry #547, supplemental. The High Council's reception chamber, designed to instill awe and fear even in the most seasoned space warriors, had never seen anything like this before. Our most brilliant architects had spent decades perfecting its intimidating design. Walls that shifted with dark matter, floors that rippled with quantum uncertainty, and anti-gravity platforms that kept visitors constantly disoriented. Ethan Cooper walked in, whistling. "Man, this place is nuts," he exclaimed, deliberately scuffing his flip-flops on the quantum floor, watching the ripples form. "It's like that rave I went to in Miami, but with way cooler lighting." Chancellor Jackson sat upon the throne of unified authority, their bioluminescent crests pulsing with bewilderment. 47 species watched as this human approached the sacred speaker circle, carrying what appeared to be a crumpled paper bag. "Honored representative of Earth," Chancellor Jackson began, their voice resounding through the neural amplifiers, "you stand before the combined might of the galactic—" "Oh, hold up, hang on," Ethan interrupted, rummaging through his bag. "Almost forgot. Brought you guys something." He pulled out a plastic container and held it up proudly. "Guacamole! And yes, this is technically a show of strength. It's my grandmother's recipe, and let me tell you, it's knocked being stronger than you to their knees." The Varexian consciousness representative's warning lights flickered urgently. "Threat detected. Biological weapon." "What?" No, Ethan chuckled, flipping open the container. "It's just really spicy. Also, I brought chips. Anyone want some? No more for me, I guess." He made himself comfortable on the quantum floor, sitting cross-legged, casually dipping chips into his grandmother's alleged weapons-grade guacamole. I cleared my throat, trying desperately to salvage some form of protocol. "Mr. Cooper, we have assembled the most powerful fleet in galactic history to welcome humanity into the galactic community. Our combined firepower could turn entire star systems into cosmic dust, and you arrive alone. In sandals?" Ethan looked up from his snack, genuinely confused. "Well, yeah. I mean, you guys said show strength, right? And there's nothing stronger than being comfortable enough to show up just as you are." He gestured to his outfit. "Besides, these aren't just any sandals. They're limited edition Star Wars flip-flops. See? They've got little Yodas on them." The Zorvok ambassador's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained indignation. "This is an outrage! Where's your military escort? Your weapons? Your means of enforcing diplomatic demands?" Ethan shrugged, licking guacamole off his thumb. "Don't need 'em. Look, I get it. You guys put on this amazing show, The crystal ships are gorgeous, the synchronized shields are impressive, super cool, but strength isn't just about who's got the biggest guns or the flashiest fleet. He stood, brushing chip crumbs from his cargo shorts. Despite his relaxed posture and completely casual attire, he managed to capture the attention of everyone in the room. Real strength, he continued, is about being secure enough to show up as you are. It's about facing the unknown with a smile and some snacks. And let me tell you something about humans. We're really, really good at that. Chancellor Jackson's crests dimmed thoughtfully. You mean to tell us that this informality is your species' demonstration of power? Part of it, Ethan said with a grin. The other part? Knowing we could have shown up with our own fancy fleet but chose not to. The strongest person in the room isn't the one flexing their muscles, it's the one who wears flip-flops to a black tie event and makes it work. The chamber fell silent again. But this silence wasn't uncomfortable. No, it was something different. It wasn't the awkward quiet from earlier, but something closer to awe, or perhaps fear. It's hard to say, especially when it comes to some of the gaseous species. Now, Ethan said, clapping his hands together, who wants to learn how to make a proper Earth margarita? Trust me, if you think the guac is a show of strength, wait until you try tequila. I quickly updated my diplomatic notes. Humans far more dangerous than initially assessed. Weapon status, everything is potentially a weapon, including hospitality. Recording entry 547, negotiation phase. The Grand Negotiation Chamber, which had witnessed thousands of critical diplomatic sessions over the millennia, was struggling to comprehend Ethan Cooper's one-of-a-kind approach to intergalactic diplomacy. Its quantum link translation matrices, psychic dampening fields, and reality stabilizers, systems created to ensure flawless communication and prevent any kind of conflict, were scrambling. So here's the deal, Ethan said, now lounging sideways in the sacred chair of equal standing, his legs draped over one armrest. You guys want access to Earth's hyperspace routes, we want access to your tech. But mainly, we want to open a chain of Mexican restaurants across the galaxy. Those are our terms. The Zorvok trade minister's crystalline form crackled with confusion. You want to exchange cuisine? Not just cuisine, Ethan corrected, pulling a tablet out of his cargo shorts pocket. Experience, culture, the sacred art of Taco Tuesday. Also, we noticed your ships run on quantum fusion. We could probably help upgrade those to something more efficient. More efficient? The Virexian consciousness representative's processing lights blinked rapidly. Our drives are the most advanced in known space. Ethan shrugged once more, now attempting to balance a pen on his nose. I mean, they're great and all, but honestly it's like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, Ethan said, nonchalantly crunching on his snack. Our engineers took one look at your specs and said, and I quote, bless their hearts, they're giving it their best shot. Chancellor Jackson leaned forward, their bioluminescence flickering in increased intensity. You claim that humans possess superior technology, yet you arrived in what seems to be nothing more than a space-worthy escape pod? Oh, that old thing? Ethan grinned, catching the pen as it tumbled from his hand. That's just my personal shuttle. I call her Casual Friday. She's a bit of a classic, kind of like showing up to a car show in a rusty '67 Mustang. Sure, I could have cruised in with something fancy, but where's the fun in that? I watched, transfixed, as Ethan sketched a rough diagram on his tablet, casually explaining how human engineers had managed to solve the quantum entanglement instability issue that had baffled our best scientists for generations. All the while, he attempted to teach Chancellor Jackson how to play a game called rock, paper, scissors. You see, the problem is, you're overthinking it, Ethan explained, juggling both the quantum physics and the rules of the game. Sometimes the simplest solution works best. Like right now, you keep choosing rock because you think it's the strongest move, but that's why paper keeps beating you. The Chancellor's tendrils twisted in confusion. This game is a metaphor for diplomatic relations? Everything's a metaphor if you dig deep enough. Ethan winked. Speaking of which, who's hungry? I brought burritos. The Zorvok trade minister raised a crystalline appendage. Before we discuss burritos, we must address the 17,000 subclauses of the Standard Trade Agreement. Ethan was already unwrapping his lunch. 177,000? Whoa, that's a bit much. How about this? We give you our quantum engineering specs, you fast-track approval for Taco Bell franchises in the Orion Arm, and we'll throw in our anti-gravity tech as a bonus. The paperwork can follow later. That's not protocol, I protested. The subclauses are crucial for making things unnecessarily complicated. Ethan cut in, biting into his burrito. Look, I get it. You guys love your protocols. But sometimes strength means knowing when to cut through the red tape. Like this burrito. He chewed thoughtfully, then shrugged. Sure, I could break it down into its individual parts, analyze each ingredient, and write a thesis on burrito assembly. Or I could just eat it. The Virexian consciousness representative's logic circuits began smoking slightly. Your diplomatic approach defies all known parameters. Thanks, Ethan beamed, clearly flattered by the compliment. Here's the thing about humans. We've learned that sometimes the most powerful move is refusing to play by the rules everyone expects. You all assembled this incredible fleet to show your strength, but we showed up in flip-flops with snacks. And guess who's running this negotiation? The room went still as the implications of his words sank in. Chancellor Jackson's bioluminescence shifted to a thoughtful purple. You were demonstrating strength by demonstrating you didn't need to demonstrate strength? Bingo, Ethan said, offering the Chancellor half of his burrito. Want to try some? Fair warning, though, it's spicy. But then again, the best things in life usually are. I quickly jotted down another note in my diplomatic observations. Humans are experts at weaponizing informality. Extreme caution is advised when offered food. They know exactly what they're doing, even when, especially when, it looks like they don't. Recording entry 547, Crisis Protocol, engaged. No one could have predicted that the Akiv Empire would disrupt our negotiations. Known for their rigid adherence to military might and their complete lack of humor, their arrival was marked by the sudden appearance of 2 warships. Their obsidian hulls absorbed light like cosmic predators. I watched in horror as Ethan Cooper's response to this looming crisis was to finish his burrito. Interesting timing, he said, brushing crumbs from his shirt. It's almost like they were waiting for a dramatic moment. The Akiv Supreme Commander's hologram appeared in the chamber, a towering figure draped in living shadow armor. Their voice carried the kind of authority that usually sent lesser species scurrying for cover. This sector belongs to the Akiv Empire, the commander declared, their voice deep and commanding. These negotiations are now under our jurisdiction. Surrender your fleets or face annihilation. Chancellor Jackson rose from their throne, tendrils crackling with diplomatic energy. The Unified Species Council does not recognize Akiv authority in this sector. Then you shall recognize our superiority through force, the commander growled, their holographic gaze fixed firmly on Ethan. And as for the humans, your species' reputation for weakness is confirmed by this pathetic display of diplomacy. Ethan stood up, stretched, and casually adjusted his flip-flops. You know what's funny? He said, in a tone as casual as if discussing the weather. Everyone keeps focusing on the flip-flops, but nobody's asked about the phone. The Akiv commander paused, clearly caught off guard. What phone? Ethan pulled out his seemingly outdated communication device. This phone, the one I've been playing games on, the one that's been running a complete analysis of your fleet's capabilities since you dropped out of hyperspace. He tapped the screen a few times. By the way, you might want to check your ship's quantum signatures. They're looking a little unstable. Alarms suddenly blared across the HKIV fleet. Their supposedly invulnerable shadow armor began flickering like malfunctioning lights. What have you done? The commander demanded. Me? Nothing much, Ethan replied nonchalantly. Just ran a little app our tech team put together. They call it Quantum Handshake Protocol. Essentially, it says hello to your quantum CES in a way they're not really prepared for. Kind of like trying to high-five someone who's expecting a formal bow. The commander's hologram flickered again. Impossible. Our shields are about as useful as a paper umbrella in a hurricane right now, Ethan said, still tapping away at his phone. Don't worry, it's temporary. Just wanted to make a point about assumptions and appearances. I watched in awe as the once mighty Kiev fleet floated powerless in space, their terrifying weapons reduced to nothing more than expensive decor by what looked like a human mobile game. Now, Ethan continued, pulling out a bag of something called Hot Cheetos. Who wants some snacks while we wrap this up? We could do this the traditional way: fleet battles, dramatic speeches, thousands of casualties, lots of paperwork, Ethan offered, holding out the bag to the commander's hologram. Or we could try something new. The commander's shadowy armor rippled with rage. You dare mock the might of the HFY? Not mocking, Ethan corrected, suggesting. See, while everyone was focused on my casual attire and snack choices, they missed something important. Humans don't show strength the way you expect because we don't think about strength the way you do. We turned war into a sport, made weapons into toys, and developed some of our most devastating technologies while trying to figure out better ways to share cat videos. He gestured at the gathered alien diplomats. These folks figured it out pretty quick. They saw past the flip-flops and realized that true strength isn't about looking strong. It's about being strong enough to not care how you look. The commander's hologram loomed closer. Your fleet, where is it? Ethan grinned. Who says we don't already have one? Maybe there are stealth ships watching us right now. Maybe that phone app was just a distraction. Maybe these flip-flops are actually advanced combat armor, or... He crunched loudly on a hot Cheeto. Maybe we're so far ahead that we don't need any of that to handle this situation. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The Virexian consciousness representative's probability processes were now completely offline, unable to calculate the odds of what they were witnessing. Here's what's going to happen, Ethan announced, his tone casual, but with an edge that hadn't been there before. You're going to withdraw your fleet, join these nice folks in the Unified Species Council, and open at least 3 franchise locations for Earth restaurants in your territory. In return, we'll pretend this little incident never happened, and even throw in the quantum stabilization tech you clearly need. The commander's hologram crackled with barely contained fury. And if we refuse? Ethan shrugged. Then I post the video I just took of your fleet being disabled by a guy in beachwear eating snacks. I'm sure that'll do wonders for your reputation as a warrior species. He paused thoughtfully. Also, this phone has a few other apps you probably wouldn't enjoy. The silence that followed was profound enough to make a black hole seem chatty. Chancellor Jackson's bioluminescence shifted to a shade of existential crisis. Ambassador Blake, they whispered to me, update the first contact protocols. All of them. The HFY commander's hologram flickered one last time. Your terms are acceptable. Cool, Ethan said, already rummaging in his bag for more snacks. Anyone want to celebrate with some salsa? It's mild, I promise. Learned my lesson after the Proxima Centauri incident. As the HFY fleet retreated and the crisis subsided, I found myself staring at this human who had just diffused an interstellar war while dressed for a beach party. My final diplomatic note of the day read, Warning, human diplomatic strategy incomprehensible, yet devastatingly effective. Do not, under any circumstances, assume their informality indicates weakness. Also, avoid their grandmother's guacamole unless medical facilities are nearby. Recording entry 547, Final Analysis. The aftermath of what became known as the flip-flop incident sent ripples through the galactic diplomatic community that would last for centuries. I found myself back in the Grand Chamber, delivering what might be the most important report of my career to a significantly humbled Unified Species Council. Distinguished representatives, I began, my mandibles clicking nervously. Our initial assessment of human diplomatic and military capabilities was well. There's no other way to say this. We got played, like a Zorvok crystal harp. The chamber's quantum displays flickered to life, showing footage from the past 72 hours. Ethan Cooper, still in his flip-flops, touring our most advanced facilities, solving millennia-old engineering problems between snack breaks, and somehow convincing the dreaded HFY Empire to open a chain of restaurants called Space Tacos. Following the crisis, I continued, activating a holographic star chart, I must report something rather concerning. Our deep space sensors detected a signal broadcast from Mr. Cooper's small shuttle. I pointed to the map. Turns out it was broadcasting a signal. We traced it. Look here, here, and here. Red dots appeared across the map, thousands of them, representing cloaked human vessels that had been watching us the entire time. They had surrounded our fleet so completely that our show of force had actually been contained within their perimeter. Chancellor Jackson's bioluminescence turned a pale shade of existential crisis. They let us perform our military display inside their own fleet formation? Yes, I confirmed, recalling Ethan's words, which he shared with me while building a house of cards in the zero-gravity chamber. According to Ethan, they thought it was, and I quote, adorable, like watching kids put on a talent show. The Virexian consciousness representatives' backup processes whirred to life, their primary systems still recovering from the initial shock. Query: how did we miss their technological superiority? Their historical records showed them barely achieving spaceflight mere centuries ago. I pulled up another display, showing human entertainment broadcasts. Because we fundamentally misunderstood their nature, we saw their movies about space battles and assumed they were aspirational. In truth, they were actually historical documentation, heavily dramatized for entertainment, but based on capabilities they already possessed. While we were developing bigger weapons, I explained, they were developing better ways to hide them. While we were perfecting our intimidation protocols, they were mastering the art of appearing harmless. Their diplomatic strategy wasn't a strategy at all. It was their culture's natural evolution. The Zorvok ambassador's crystalline form shimmered in disbelief. The flip-flops were deliberate psychological warfare? No, I said, shaking my head. That's what makes it worse. Ethan really just likes flip-flops. The humans are so advanced that they don't need to engage in psychological warfare, I continued. Their casual confidence is genuine because they have nothing to prove. I brought up footage from the previous day's cultural exchange event, where Ethan had introduced the concept of karaoke to the council. The sight of the Hikiv commander attempting to sing something called Sweet Home Alabama would haunt my nightmares forever. Their real strength, I concluded, is their complete indifference to how they're perceived. And it's that strength that we can't begin to comprehend. I continued. The strength lies in their adaptability. They transformed our most sacred protocols into a party, turned our military display into a photo op, and made a business expansion out of our crisis. And they managed all of this without once dropping their mask of casual friendliness. The chamber buzzed with nervous murmurs, and Chancellor Jackson raised their tendrils, signaling for silence. What are your recommendations, Ambassador Blake? I straightened my posture, making sure I had everyone's attention. First, immediate ratification of all trade agreements. The humans have already begun installing something called Wi-Fi across our territories. Half our species is now obsessed with something they call cat videos. I let the words hang in the air. Second, mandatory revisions to our first contact protocols. The show of strength requirement is clearly outdated. Maybe we need to incorporate something involving food sharing and casual conversation. I activated one final holographic display showing economic projections. Prepare for significant cultural shifts. Human restaurants are already opening across the galaxy. Their entertainment broadcasts are now being shared among species. In fact, 3 Zorvok cruise ships have already been repurposed into spring break party boats. At that precise moment, Ethan Cooper strolled into the chamber, proudly wearing a new pair of flip-flops adorned with glowing quantum circuitry. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he said cheerfully, waving the flip-flops in the air. "Just wanted to let you know, the first batch of human diplomats will be arriving next week, and fair warning, they're bringing their pets." The Virexian consciousness representatives' cooling fans started whirring into overdrive. "Pets?" one of them stuttered. "Yep, dogs mostly, a few cats. And one guy's bringing his emotional support alligator. Don't worry, it's very friendly," Ethan added, casually tossing a snack into his mouth. I watched the council representatives try to process this new information. "Mr. Cooper," I ventured, "now that the crisis is over, would you be willing to speak candidly about human capabilities?" Ethan smiled and pulled out a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. "Sure. Though, to be honest, we've been pretty clear from the start. You just didn't believe us because we weren't being dramatic enough." He gestured around the room. "See, humans figured something out early on. The more advanced you become, the less you need to prove it. We could have arrived with massive warships, super weapons, and fancy uniforms. But why? It's like bringing a tank to a dinner party." Chancellor Jackson's tendrils twitched. But surely there must be times when a show of force is necessary. Ethan nodded. Oh, absolutely. But real strength doesn't need to be paraded. It just needs to be there, like that fleet we had cloaked around yours. Standard procedure. We call it the trust but verify approach. Or in this case, trust but keep enough firepower around to vaporize a solar system, just in case. The chamber fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Here was a species so powerful they treated first contact like an informal social gathering, so advanced they could hide world-destroying capabilities behind snack foods and beachwear, and so confident they could defuse an interstellar crisis using nothing but a mobile phone game. One last question, I asked, unable to resist. The flip-flops, were they really just flip-flops? Ethan looked down at his feet, smiled, and shrugged. Well, mostly. They're also quantum-linked to Earth's defense network and can teleport me to safety if needed. Plus, they're super comfortable. He brightened. Speaking of which, who wants to head down to the new beach resort we just finished terraforming on your fourth moon? First round of margaritas is on me. As the chamber slowly emptied, the representatives still in a daze from the shock of it all, I made my final entry into the diplomatic database. Humanity classification update. Technological level far beyond initial assessment. Military capability unknown, but assumed maximum. Diplomatic approach, deceptively casual. Threat level, extreme but mostly benign. Primary cultural exports, food, entertainment, and a disturbing ability to turn any situation into a party. Additional notes: do not, under any circumstances, assume their informality indicates weakness. Their apparent lack of protocol is their protocol. Also, their food should be considered a controlled substance. Their casual wear may disguise advanced technology, and their pets are coming. May the void help us all. End recording. As I prepared to close the log, I heard Ethan's voice echoing down the corridor. Hey, who wants to learn how to surf? Don't worry about the radiation levels. That's what sunscreen is for. I quickly added one final line. P.S. Update emergency medical protocols to account for human recreational activities. They call them extreme sports for a reason.